To anyone looking in, my sister and I are fine. They see us at holiday dinners, making small talk, and they just assume we've forgiven and forgotten. They see the fragile truce my parents worked so hard for and mistake it for peace. What they don't see is the folder on my computer, the one that's locked, encrypted, and labeled the arsenal. My family might have chosen to forget the web of lies she spun that almost tore us apart, but I haven't. I've documented everything. I'm not waiting for an apology, I am waiting for her to slip up. This is the story of how, after a year of silent, patient planning, she finally did. To really get how we ended up here, you have to understand my sister Chloe. Growing up, Chloe was the sun. Our whole family just orbited around her. She was charming, she was vibrant, and she had this flair for the dramatic that our parents thought was cute. I was the quiet one, the observer. And honestly, I was happy to live in her shadow because it was just less complicated. Her stories were always a little bigger, her wins a little more spectacular, her problems a little more catastrophic than anyone else's. We all just figured, that's Chloe. We didn't have the words for it back then, but she was conditioning us. We were learning that Chloe's version of reality was the only one that mattered, mostly because it was always the loudest. Her life was just this constant stream of crises that only she could fix, and tiny wins she'd blow up into historic victories. If she got a B on a test, it was because the teacher had a personal vendetta against her. If she got a tiny promotion at her part-time job, she'd talk about it like the CEO had personally chosen her for the executive fast track. We'd roll our eyes, sure, but we'd comfort her. We'd celebrate with her. It was just easier than questioning her. Arguing with Chloe was like trying to wrestle smoke. She'd just shift and twist your words until suddenly you were the one apologizing. We didn't see that she was sharpening her tools, practicing the art of manipulation she'd one day use to try and burn our whole family down. The turning point, the thing that shattered our family's cozy denial, started about 2 years ago. I'd just gotten engaged to my fiancé, Mark. Mark is a wonderful, stable, straightforward guy, basically. Everything Chloe is not. And right from the start, she saw him as a threat to her spot in the center of the universe. The little digs and concerns started almost right away. She'd pull my mom aside and whisper about how Mark seemed a little distant, or how he didn't really fit our family's vibe. She was triangulating, creating these tiny fractures and planting seeds of doubt everywhere. But then it escalated. Big time. It started with money, just small amounts. Chloe would tell my parents she was short on rent because her roommate bailed and they'd give her a few $100. A week later, she's posting photos of a new designer bag or a weekend trip. When ID pointed out, she'd have some crazy story ready. It was a gift, a work trip. The purse was a fake. The lies were clumsy, but my parents wanted to believe her. They were classic enablers, always choosing a fragile piece over the ugly truth. The real campaign started when she announced she was sick, and not just a cold, a serious, chronic illness, one that needed expensive treatments that, of course, weren't covered by insurance. The sympathy was immediate. My parents' world snapped back to focusing on her. My wedding planning? It took a back seat. Every single conversation was about Chloe's health, her bravery, her struggle. She'd describe these debilitating symptoms, doctor's appointments, terrifying test results. She played the victim perfectly, and all the family's attention and money just poured her way. Mark was skeptical. He's a doctor, and the details she gave just didn't add up. Her symptoms would conveniently flare up anytime the attention wasn't on her, like when I was going wedding dress shopping, or when Mark parents threw us an engagement party. He tried to gently bring up his concerns with me, but I was still under her spell and got defensive. This was exactly what Chloe wanted. She drove a wedge right between us. The peak of her plan was when she accused Mark of trying to sabotage her treatment. She claimed she overheard him on the phone, laughing with a colleague about her so called illness and saying she was making it up. Through crocodile tears, she told our parents that Mark had even suggested she should stop taking her medication just to see what would happen. It was a complete vicious lie, but the performance was Oscar worthy. My parents were horrified. They confronted me, asking how I could be with someone so cruel. They told me I had to choose Mark or the family. That fight was the worst in our family's history. It was me and Mark against everyone. He swore he never said those things, and I believed him. But the damage was done. My relationship with my parents was in shreds. We barely spoke for weeks. Chloe, meanwhile, was soaking up the drama, playing the tragic victim of Marcus' cruelty. The stress was unbelievable. The wedding was on pause. Our family felt broken. The truth only came out by pure accident. My cousin happened to be at our house during one of Chloe's supposed medical emergencies. She later mentioned to my aunt that she saw Chloe sprint up the stairs to get her wallet a feat that should have been impossible, according to Chloe's description of her physical state. My aunt, whose own daughter has a similar illness, started asking questions. The whole web of lies just unraveled in a few days. There was no illness, no expensive treatments. It was all a lie. A cold, calculated performance designed to get her attention and to ruin my happiness. The confrontation was pathetic. Chloe, cornered with nowhere left to run, just collapsed into a puddle of tears. She didn't apologize for the lies. Not really. Instead, she reframed it. She said she was struggling with her mental health, that she felt invisible after I got engaged, that she was just so scared of losing me, that she created a crisis to keep us all close. It was a master class in deflection, shifting the blame from her malicious actions to her supposed emotional pain. She never once admitted what she'd done to Mark, and my parents bought it. They were so desperate to glue the family back together that they grabbed onto her non-apology like a life raft. My dad, a man who has run from conflict his whole life, just said, "We need to forgive. She's our daughter, and she's hurting. Holding on to anger will only destroy us." My mom, with tears in her eyes, agreed. They planned a family dinner, a healing summit, where we were all just supposed to hug it out and move on. I just sat there, stunned. Forgiveness? Chloe hadn't earned it. She hadn't even really asked for it. She had lied, manipulated, and tried to destroy my relationship. And her only defense was that she felt sad. Mark and I got a mumbled, "I'm sorry for the misunderstanding" from her, which felt more like a slap in the face. But I saw the look in my parents' eyes. They were begging me, without saying a word, to just let it go, to play along so we could have peace. So, I did. I nodded. I said, "It's okay." And in that moment, I felt this cold, hard feeling settle in my chest. I realized my family's love came with a price. The price was accepting their reality, a world where Chloe's feelings mattered more than facts, more than the truth, more than me. They weren't protecting her. They were enabling her. And they had taught her there are no consequences. That night, after forcing a smile through the most dishonest dinner of my life, I went home and created a new folder on my computer. I named it The Arsenal. If my family wasn't going to hold her accountable, I would. I was done being a victim of her gaslighting. I would collect her lies, document her games, and build a case so solid that even my parents couldn't look away. I knew she'd do it again. They always do. And when she did, I'd be ready. That first year, after the Great Reconciliation, was a masterclass in faking it. Chloe was on her best behavior, at least when my parents were around. But she hadn't changed, she just got better at hiding it. And I picked up a new hobby, digital archaeology. I saved everything, every text, every email, every shady social media post. And I started using the voice recorder on my phone a lot. The first piece of evidence for the arsenal came about 2 months in. Chloe called our parents in a total panic, claiming she'd been laid off. Another crisis, another flood of sympathy. My dad immediately offered to cover her rent for 3 months. No questions asked. I was with my mom when she took the call and heard Chloe sobbing about how humiliated she was. Later that week, I met a mutual friend for coffee and casually asked how Chloe was doing. My friend looked confused. Chloe? Oh, she's great. She's so excited. She quit her job last month to focus on being an influencer. She's been planning it for ages. My blood ran cold. That night, I called Chloe pretending to be sympathetic. I told her I had a friend whose company was hiring and asked if I could send her resume. Oh, I can't, she said, her voice thick with fake grief. I'm just too devastated to even think about job hunting right now. I recorded the whole call. Evidence File 1, audio recording, the fake layoff. Just pausing the story for a second. If you've ever had to deal with someone who constantly twists reality to fit their own narrative, you know how maddening it is. If this story is hitting home, think about subscribing to the channel. Okay, back to the evidence. The next incident was even more brazen. Our grandmother S. birthday was coming up, and she wanted a specific expensive perfume. My parents gave Chloe $200 cash to buy it, since the store was near her. At the party, Chloe presents the gift with a huge flourish. But when my grandmother opened it, I knew something was wrong. It was a cheap knockoff. The box was slightly different. The smell was all wrong. Chloe launched into a story about how the original store was sold out, but she found a specialty boutique that had the last one. Later that night, I checked her Instagram, and there it was, on her close friend's story. A picture of new expensive shoes, captioned, "Sometimes you just have to treat yourself." The timestamp was from the afternoon she was supposed to be perfume shopping. I screenshotted it. Then I went online and found the knockoff perfume for $19.99. I screenshotted that too. Evidence File 2. Screenshots, the perfume heist. And it wasn't just about money. She was constantly trying to undermine me. After Mark and I finally got married, she started making comments about our finances. She told my aunt, in confidence, that she was worried about us, that Mark was a spendthrift, and I was always stressed about money. It was a complete lie. Mark and I are both savers. But my aunt, thank God, came straight to me. She forwarded me the texts. Chloe's messages were just dripping with fake concern. I just don't want to see her get hurt. He bought that new TV and she looked so upset. Please don't tell her I said anything. I had bought the TV with a work bonus. Chloe was trying to paint my happy, stable marriage as a mess to isolate me and create drama. I saved the whole conversation. Evidence File 3. Text messages. Relationship sabotage. Tiered tuned O. For a full year, I collected these moments. The voicemail where she claimed to be at a work conference, but I could hear the jingle of the ice cream truck from our old neighborhood. The screenshots of her begging our cousins for money for a dental emergency, followed by posts of her getting expensive hair treatments the next day. Each lie was a digital breadcrumb. I sorted them into folders: financial lies, sympathy ploys, sabotage attempts. The arsenal became this undeniable record of who she really was. It was an encyclopedia of her deception, complete with dates, times, and proof. I felt like a detective and a monster at the same time, but I knew it was the only way. Sooner or later, she was going to overplay her hand. The moment came, just like I knew it would, during our parents' 40th wedding anniversary. My parents aren't rich, but they have one very valuable thing: a sapphire necklace that belonged to my great-grandmother. It's my mother's most prized possession, and she decided to give it to me on her anniversary as the eldest daughter. She told us both a few weeks before. Chloe put on a brave face, saying, "Oh, of course, that makes sense." But I saw the rage flicker in her eyes. The day of the party, my mom went to the safe to get the necklace, and it was gone. Total panic. My mom was devastated. My dad was trying to calm her down, saying she must have just misplaced it. And then Chloe made her move. She pulled my dad aside, just loud enough for me and a few others to hear, and said, with this voice full of fake sadness, "Dad, I didn't want to say anything, but I saw her. I saw her near the safe last week. She said she was just admiring it. She was pointing at me." The accusation just hung in the air, thick and poisonous. My mother looked at me, her eyes filled with confusion and that flicker of doubt I knew so well. My dad just looked tired, like he was ready to give up. The rest of the family went silent. It was happening all over again. A massive lie, designed to paint me as a thief. Chloe even had tears in her eyes as she said, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I know she and Mark have been wanting to buy a house. Maybe she was just desperate." It was the perfect lie, plausible, vicious, and devastating. The old me would have screamed. I would have denied it, my voice getting higher, which only would have made me look guiltier. But this wasn't the old me. I had the arsenal. I took a deep breath and looked right at Chloe. My voice was calm. "That's a really serious thing to say, Chloe. Interesting timing." I walked over to the TV, took an HDMI cable from my purse, and hooked up my laptop. My relatives just looked confused. Chloe's face went a little pale. "You know," I said, my voice totally steady, "for the past year, I've been living in this strange reality my family created. A world where keeping the peace is more important than telling the truth. And I've decided I don't want to live there anymore." I clicked open the folder named The Arsenal. The room was dead silent. You all remember the huge lie about Chloe's illness 2 years ago. We were all told to forgive and forget, but the behavior never stopped. It just got quieter. I opened the first file. Chloe's own voice filled the room, lying about being laid off. Then I showed them the screenshot of her friend's post about her quitting to be an influencer. I saw my dad's face harden. Next, the perfume. The picture of the cheap bottle, the picture of Chloe's new shoes, the online receipt for the knockoff. My aunt gasped. One by one, I laid out my case. I played the voicemail from the conference. I showed them the text to our aunt where she was lying about my marriage. With every piece of evidence, the mood in the room shifted from confused to shocked to this cold, quiet anger. I wasn't yelling. I was just presenting facts, just holding up a mirror. Chloe started to fall apart. "She's twisting things. She's been spying on me. This is sick," she cried. "Am I?" I asked calmly. "Or am I just showing them the truth you work so hard to hide?" Then I went for the kill. I opened the last folder, labeled "The Necklace." "You're accusing me of stealing Mom's necklace for a down payment, but it seems like you forgot about your little trip last Tuesday." I clicked a video file. It was security footage from a pawn shop 2 towns over. I had spent the morning calling every single one in a 50-mile radius, my heart pounding, until one of them had a record of a sapphire necklace sale. It cost me $200 for a copy of the security tape. The video showed Chloe, clear as day, at the counter. The shop owner held up the unmistakable necklace. Then he counted a stack of cash into her hand. For the final touch, I pulled up a screenshot from her bank app, which she had stupidly shown me weeks before to brag about her savings, showing a large cash deposit on that exact day. Complete silence. My mother made a small wounded sound, like she'd been hit. My dad just stared at the screen, his face white. Every eye in the room was on Chloe. There was no way to spin this, no way to reframe it. The evidence was absolute. Her web of lies wasn't just unraveled, it was vaporized. Chloe's reaction was exactly what happens when a manipulator loses all control. First, denial. "That's not me, it's fake, she is framing me," she shrieked, her voice cracking. But nobody was buying it. The proof was right there on a 55-inch screen. When denial didn't work, she switched to rage. She screamed at me, calling me a monster, a psycho, for spying on her. She was the one who ruined the family, not me. Finally, when rage failed, she collapsed into victimhood. Sobs shook her whole body. She curled up on the floor, wailing about how nobody loved her and how we were all ganging up on her. It was the same move she pulled 2 years ago. But this time, the magic was gone. My parents just stared at her, their faces a mix of pity and disgust. My father, the great conflict avoider, finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but solid. "Get up, Chloe," he said. "Just get up. We're done." She stormed out, slamming the door. The silence she left behind was heavy. The party was obviously over. One by one, my relatives quietly left, giving me these small, sympathetic looks. For the first time, they weren't looking at me like I was the problem. They were looking at me like they finally got it. When it was just me, Mark, and my parents, my mother walked over and really looked at me. "You knew," she whispered. "You've known this whole time." I just nodded. She started to cry, but these weren't the desperate tears I was used to. These were tears of shame. "We let this happen," she said. "We let her do this to you." It didn't feel like a victory. It was just sad. There's no joy in being right when it costs this much. There was just the quiet, heavy weight of a family that had chosen to be blind and had finally been forced to see. The weeks after that were strange and quiet. Chloe cut off all contact. She wouldn't answer my parents' calls. It turned out she was in a lot of debt, and the money from the necklace was already gone. My dad used the pawn ticket I'd found and managed to buy the necklace back for more than it was worth. It feels tainted now, but my mother keeps it. A reminder of the price of looking the other way. My parents and I started talking. I mean, really talking. For the first time, they apologized. Not just for doubting me, but for being enablers. They admitted their fear of a fight had created the perfect environment for Chloe's lies to grow. They're in family counseling now, trying to unpack all of it. Chloe eventually resurfaced. Facing no money and no family, she agreed to go to therapy. It's a condition for any kind of future relationship. I don't know if it will work. People like her rarely change unless they're forced to. I don't see her. I don't talk to her. That trust is just gone. I don't know if it can ever come back. Forgiveness isn't even on the map right now. Our family isn't fixed, it's broken, and we're slowly trying to build something new on a foundation of truth. It's painful and it's awkward, but at least it's real. As for me, I deleted the folder. The arsenal did its job. I don't feel like a hero. I mostly just feel tired, but I also feel free. Free from the gaslighting, free from having to constantly defend my own reality. I finally stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. I did what I had to do to protect myself and force my family to see a truth they refused to look at. It was a destructive act, but it came from a desperate need for reality to win, just for once. It wasn't really about revenge. It was about reclaiming my own sanity. But I still wonder about how I did it. And that's the question I have for you. Was I wrong to wait and build a case against my own sister in secret? Or was it the only way to finally break the cycle and make them all see the truth? Let me know what you would have done in the comments. Thanks for listening to my story. If you found this compelling, please give this video a like and subscribe for more. It really helps the channel out. I'll see you next time.